this vision, this story that he has to share with all of us. And I'm just so blessed to be part of it with all of you. So without hearing any more of me, let us have Chief Midegah come and join us.
Is the mic working okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'd say, nini nanawimagan, or I see your spirit, my family and relations. And I've met Nephi over the last couple months, the last couple weeks that I actually do. This is one of the kindest communities I've been in a long time. And it's nice to feel welcomed. I'd say, Midegah ogichi da'a nindigo Ojibwe mung. So they call me the kind man, and I'm from the Ojibwe peoples. And as you probably figured out by now, I'm not always kind. But there was a chapter of my life, people paid taxes for me to be a part of killing people. So I know very well that I'm like the last group that should go to heaven, but I'm going to be there. So I'm grateful for forgiveness. I'd say Adik Sangab Nindu Dem, my clan family, my traditional home and governance is the Caribou clan, which is the head clan of the deer family. It's the branch of the deer where the male and female both equally wear antlers. And that's why we care so deeply for the mother. I'd say Nibinanang Aki, Nindunjaba, or I come from a region in North America that we call the Bountiful Land. And it's because it's a sacred place where the earth seems to produce more things. And it stretched from northern Missouri all the way up to Lake of the Woods, which is just to the west of Lake Superior, and like a triangle over to Spirit Lake in North Dakota, which America chooses to call Devil's Lake. But they don't like to call things what they should be called. It is just the way it is. I am representing my family. I'm not here representing myself as a member of any church. I know the volume's working. I'm representing my clan family, where I'm appointed as a clan headman or an ogima that you would call a traditional chief. I'm representing my family's 2 treaties, affirmed even as recent as last August in the District Court of Washington, D.C., where I fought against another tribe to make sure that they weren't selling or abrogating our rights. And sometimes you have to step into the war or drama of larger groups to be able to make sure that they stay principled. And that puts you in the line of fire. And that's not easy sometimes. So I represent the 1789 Treaty of Fort Harmar, the very first treaty the United States signed under their Constitution. And one of my grandfather, Chiefs Puanakam, signed that. And then his grandson, Chief Joseph Montreal, and his brother-in-law, Chief Red Bear, signed the 1863 Pembina Treaty of Old Crossing. And there are various parties involved there. But we're the smallest group, but it turns out we happen to have the largest voice. So it is what it is. I also represent the traditional governance lodges, which is, you have lodges too, called city halls and parliaments, but we have ours too. It's the very same structure and system that the colonialists came into to ask permission to form a government upon our land and to ask us not to go to war with them when they went to war with their sovereign. And we didn't. And they honored us with a treaty under their constitution, the first one. And prior to that, with the 1784 and 1785 treaties under their Continental Congress. We've always maintained our side of the agreement. They have not. But today, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about division. We're not talking about corporations. We're not talking about reasons to not sit together. We're talking about spirit men and spirit women. That we have to start seeing each other as we really are, and not as Americans or Mexicans or Canadians or Europeans or Asians or even American Indians. And there's a lot of different groups there. But we're talking about spirits in bodies on this earth. And we have to see that again. We're talking about men remembering their sacred responsibility to women, and about how our strength and endurance, I can lift a heavier rock than any woman in here. But that strength and endurance is to provide for and protect your strength and endurance, which are the generations yet to come. And to do that means I have to provide for and protect all those things that those generations will need. And they'll need water, and they'll need air, and they'll need trees, and plant life, and animal life, and life of the skies and of the seas. And it's time that we remembered that as well before it's all gone. So we're not talking to your churches. We're talking to you as spirit men and women. And we may be a small voice. There may not be a lot of us left, especially in the traditional governance, as they've gone to war with us too since the 1930s. But remember, there was a man in your book named Moroni, and when he was fleeing, even though he was the only one from the south left, living the good way and going north to find those in the north that still were there, don't forget about the people of Ammon. He knew where he was going. And even though there was one, his voice represented the Creator on this earth. We believe in the 7 grandfather teachings that came to us at the dawn of creation, and again after a flood event that all peoples on this earth share. We all talk about it. We would call the Father Nusha, the Father who gave us these things. And you can Google 7 grandfather teachings and you'll get a bunch of different versions, because based upon the community they're in and the problems in that community, they're trying to apply the core concept of each step to the problem that's in that community. It applies to every function of our life. It's a baseline for conduct on this earth. And we should remember, as that grandmother said, that everything that's created that you can see and can't see has one creator. Everything is sustained by that creator from moment to moment. Even your body and your spirit, you're never disconnected from your creator at any moment in time. You might have amnesia. You might be occupied in noise, but you're always connected. And that's the purpose of prophets. They get sent to wicked people usually. And I would ask you to go read the scriptures. Generally, when you see prophets, you see people that need a lot of instruction. And the longer the prophet's there, generally the more wicked the people are. But they should be telling you and reminding you that you are tethered to your Creator at all times. And so we believe, I'll share them as we know them at their core, which is wisdom, respect, humility, honesty, truth, courage, and love. And we're trying to remind you of this so that we can do the next thing. That there's wisdom to know there is only one Creator of all things seen and unseen. So we show respect to all things seen and unseen because the Creator is sustaining all of it. And then we show humility within creation because really quickly you realize humanity is the biggest thing going. We can change creation. So humanity must be sacred within this earth. And so we should live with a lot more restraint and respect for each other's humanity. That we show honesty that if you are the biggest thing going, then you must have a walk with the Creator that's very special and important. So what you have gained, obtained, garnered, or been ordained is not another's to take away or to covet or seek. David in the Bible tried to talk to you about that with Saul. But when we know that, then we know its truth is that all the plants and animals, all the insects and the birds of the sky and the beings of the water, that they too have a purpose here. And we should show restraint and respect to them. The Jews take this one and they say they will not eat flesh that has blood in it. They're not offending the flesh, they're offending the spirit that's still connected to the body. This is how they try to live the concept of truth. They don't want to dishonor the animal, any animal. When we know all that, then we can have courage that everything's going to work for our good. I'm a spirit in a temple on this earth. My Creator must be carrying me. And so I'll show love, unconditional equity and justice to all things in all places. What would the Creator do here? If He made you in His image, then shouldn't you walk like He walks? Would He crush even the blade of grass? I doubt it. I think He'd walk on top of the blade of grass. Would He kill that mosquito? I think He'd let him get a drop and shoo him away. These are things to think about and reflect on. And so we're trying to remind you of this. There's only one God. It's in everything, sustaining all things in you. You're sacred. Start treating each other better. Stop trying to take everybody's things. Start treating the animals better and the earth better. Start living like spirit men and women in bodies that are temples for your spirit. You're building blocks for a bigger temple. Start showing some love, equity, and justice to each other. Stop using rivers and mountains and prairies to divide each other. It's just a fact the river is watering both sides equally. Stop judging each other about what one knows and what one doesn't know. To some, they're in a desert and they got a single drop of water. And to others, they're next to large lakes with abundance and plenty. But if you go to those in the desert, that drop of water is more valuable when you're where they are than that entire lake that you possess back where you're from. So meet them where they are and honor the drop of water that they have. Stop believing that you know it all. When you know it all, you can't learn anything new. If you know, you can't be taught. And I guarantee you don't know as much as the Creator. Our people, the Anishinaabe Ojibwe, have primarily lived in the Great Lakes region. We have a long history of movements around the continent. And we know a lot of migrations that came into the continent. But that's because we kept continual communication with the peoples around the continent. We don't put up lines and then pick favorites on European languages. Speak Spanish, or speak English, not Spanish. Well, pick your European language. Speak Ojibwe. It's domestic to the land. So you have to see these things as they are. If you are saying that a river, we're just trying to get you to see the humanity in each other. And it's not saying justify each other's sins. I got more than everybody in this room. Trust me, I hear about it on the internet all the time. So, and I would say, then good, then you come and do it. I don't want to do it. I got to go do radiation therapy soon. I got better things to do if I'm thinking about my body. But if I'm thinking about my spirit, then my elders have said that I have an ability to drop seeds. The thing that was my great struggle in my life was speaking. And you wouldn't know it. But when I was a little boy, I severed my tongue and I carried it in my hand. Freaked my mom out. She actually ran away. She was so shocked by it. I don't blame her for it. I was shocked too. But I had to learn to talk again. And I had to overcome and work really hard with a lot of people to be able to do that. With a couple-year period where I was taken and kidnapped and lived in mountains, befriended a moose. And that really happened. Learned teachings directly from my Creator about faith. Tried to cross a river. You've probably heard me share it again. Groundhog's Day, you're going to hear it again. I was with my twin brother and I tried to cross a river. It was usually a creek. But it was pouring down rain and we thought we could take a shortcut. And in the middle, I slipped. In the moment I slipped, doomed, I shouldn't be here today, I reached back with faith. At the moment I reached back, I had a brother who saw me slip and reached forward. When we reach for each other, the Creator's in the middle. He fills the gap. We don't have to be in this exact same place. I slipped, I reached, my brother reached, and there was a large branch that was magically between us, and we were holding it. That's a teaching on faith and unity and the power of love. And I think about it all the time. Sometimes it seems it's impossible. Sometimes it seems organizations are too big to turn that wheel. Sometimes all the noise of the world tells you that you don't have a place. That the noise is more powerful than your Creator. The noise is from your Creator. All things will be for our good. And so I used poetry to try to help me learn to talk. And then my elders, over time, had said, you have to go talk to them. We have these little tiny things called scrolls. They're made on birch bark paper. Some of them are like teaching scrolls. They're in squares or rectangles. And we had paper. It's from the birch tree. And the Jesuits knew this. They came to us in the 1640s and they brought their Black Book Bible. And our elders were just in the Vatican this last month, in September. And the Pope Francis, met with a small delegation that was led by Awita Kozit, Wendy Phillips, who represents the traditional peoples and the traditional governance and is on the big councils of the continents. It's a female. It's about time. And they returned some of those. But when we first presented our history to them, they thought we were trying to make a new Bible, so they went to war with us, and they started destroying all of our things. And so these things were hid up and spread out across the continent. And it might seem confusing to you because your school system hasn't taught you anything about us. Even right now in Germany, starting in September, all grade 10 have to have a book and a class about the current genocide occurring in Canada and the United States against the Indians right now. And if you go up to an Indian and you ask him, well, what percentage are you? What you are doing is picking up a shield and a sword and going to war. What you're saying to them is that you believe that they're good enough, they're better off in your nation than their own. What you're telling them is, are you enough to be a member of your nation, but you're enough to be in ours? We'll take you. That's another type of theft. If you ask one, well, what percentage Indian are you? The first thought, I want to help you understand. The first thought in their mind is you're taking their children from them. That's the first thought. Oh, if I'm not enough Indian, then my children certainly are only enough to be in your nation. I need you to hear that. Right now, sometimes you may hear me talk, and I'll get to the point here. But this is important because I had some meetings with another organization who the seat will always be open for. That's a part of that great city who has that great master of Jesus Christ. And whether you have the big house on the hill or the small house, the little shack down by the woods, whether you have many in your home or few, you are equal in the counsel of the Lord. And so there was quite a misunderstanding culturally that occurred. It's easy to say you speak for the Jew and you speak for the Indian until the Jew and Indian are together and they come to speak to you. Will you listen? Or are they not Jew enough or Indian enough compared to you? Whose history are you reflecting in your life? Whose history is in your scriptures? Is it ours or is it yours? And if it's ours, shouldn't you listen to us? We had a call to the lodge last night. I'll just say this because I'm a little confrontational. I had like almost 600 Marines in my 14 years in the Marine Corps. There are times when you teach, and there are times when you confront bad behavior. But big wheels can turn too, and I do want to tell everyone, we're not trying to make a church. We're not trying to pick a favorite. We're trying to remind you that there's a circle, and everybody has a chair in it. And we should start working that way first. And we know that that's working because instead of dragging an organization into court, we just sent them a letter and said, hey, these are some things you might want to look at because they could take away a lot from you. And we got a call last night from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, showing respect, from their security services, official security services, because in the letter there was a portion that talked about an incident when I went to their general conference with elders from 12 nations. And I will go to any general conference that say they're proclaiming love for Jesus Christ, the great peacemaker. And I wore this necklace that was rainbow colored that had been given to me by a real holy man from the Iroquois nation, the Haudenosaunee. And I was at a gathering a couple years ago in Mississauga. It's north of Toronto. It's a place of many rivers. And I had made normally the Iroquois and the Anishinaabe have quite the history of conflict. It's a little bit like the Lamanites and Nephites. There's a river between us, and we had to learn too how to get along with each other. Nobody's perfect. You have periods where you're good and periods where you're bad. And I had made a comment that made him laugh. And then we found brotherhood because humor is the great gift of the Creator. And I had said that, that we're Anishinaabe, we're spirits lowered. We're Ojibwe, we're spirits in bodies, temples, and we're Ojibways. We're recording a vision with our God. And so therefore, all of us are actually Anishinaabe and Ojibwe and Ojibwe. And this Iroquois heard this, and he was like, whoa, like, hey, I'm a Iroquois Haudenosaunee. And so I said, yeah, that's right. Get back across the St. Lawrence River, buddy. But it was rather funny. And so I got this necklace from him to remember that unity that we had. And so I put my clan pendant that my grandmother had made for me on it, this beautiful carved bone deer. And but anyways, I was at the general conference, and a comment was made that my type of people were not allowed in the building. And it was just somebody that wasn't culturally aware. And everybody makes a mistake. And it doesn't cast judgment on everybody, but it's something that should be talked about. And they had assumed that it was, wrongly, a gentleman had assumed that it was a part of the LGBTQ. Who cares if it was? We're spirits and bodies. But anyways, they called and apologized. And they reached out and asked us if we would come and give education and training support and things like that. wheels turning. We have to talk about these things and about our culture, because we're not going to change into your culture. You're living in the telestial world, and we don't want to. We want to be in the terrestrial world that we're being drug out of. It doesn't say we want to give up technology, but we'd like to use it in a better way. We'd like to use this great gift of creation that humanity has to add value to creation and not diminish it. And we think that those discussions can take place. We don't think we know everything. We don't think we have the perfect plan. But we know if we get everybody in a circle and everybody talks, that we'll find the fire in the middle, the one thing we share in common. And that fire is like a sacred flower. That's how I see a fire. It's light. We got lights in here. But the fire from a light is it's a moving flower. It's symbolic of our unity. And we think this is sacred and unique. And so we've decided that with the scrolls that we have, which are these little tiny pieces of paper wound up really tight, that museums were damaging and breaking, trying to open, that we would just assist in opening them ourselves. And these had been spread all across the continent. You understand California and Maine and Florida, and people during, especially like right now, when they talk about being Ohioan and Californian and Texan and, all the voting stuff going on. Well, we had regions too. The Nez Perce are a region of the Ojibwe. So are the Blackfoot and the Cheyenne and the Saulteaux and the Algonquin and the Potawatomi and the Dawa'a. These are regions. Nipissing. These are Mississauga. You might think they're all different tribes. Just like I could say, if there was many states in here, you must be different nations. And you'd say, no, we're American. Well, we're the same. We've just never been allowed in 200 years to speak as one voice. And we're trying to say, well, maybe we can't speak as one voice, but maybe you'll together with us speak as one voice and fulfill your true potential of trying to honor the Creator. If you're going to honor the Creator, honor His creation. And so we had some miraculous things happen in the last couple of years, and our elders decided to gather these things to see what's been left. And this was the year where everything kind of came together. And when they started opening these scrolls, they found some amazing things. Well, starting 3 years ago, we found some amazing things. We found some stories that talked about other people, and we knew them orally. We just kept them in our house. Because everybody that I'm speaking for, I'm 46. Everyone below me has no understanding of what those above me went through. Every Indian that you meet over the age of 60, every single one, if they are a female, 60% of them are sterilized. And that occurred from 1960 to 1974. There are times when I will have to talk to you with that pain. And my voice will not be nice and kind. And it's not contention to remind you of their scars and their suffering that I have to express to you when I'm trying to pull you to the circle. And you say you have nothing to offer. What percentage are you? You're going to be with us. No. They were sterilized because they weren't good enough to be in their own nations. You say, well, there's not a lot of you. That's why. 100% of all Indians over the age of 60 were not allowed to be raised by their parents. And until 1999 in Canada and 1978 in the US, they couldn't even raise their own children. Your people said they weren't good enough to raise their own children. the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I am not a contentious spirit in stating fact that has been given to me as an authorized ambassador to you to remind you of reasons why we should dwell together in kindness, because I'm speaking to you kindness, and that's truth. They took 60,000 kids. Did Jesus do that, or did men? They weren't good enough to be with their aunts or uncles or their mothers and fathers. They were good enough to be in your families, but not ours. What percentage are you? I need to qualify if you're good enough to be in your nation. Oh, but you're good enough to be in mine. We've lost all of our land. We have 400 and something treaties that are not honored. We've almost lost our language. It was illegal to speak and was therefore only spoken within the communities. And it was hidden from a lot because they were afraid of what would happen to you if you slipped up. And yet I stood with my grandmother, and she said something in Anishinaabe-Moan, and an American said, "Speak English, not Mexican." These things you have to understand us. In our communities, we value color. Color is symbolic of the box we're in. We're in a house. It's got 6 directions: east, west, south, north, sky above, earth below. Like, you're in a box. Creator made all of it. You're in a house. And that's why we say that song, Ayagichi Dawe, Bushkegin, Yahweh, yeah. It's, you made this great place. Whatever comes, I accept. Come, Great Spirit. And we all equally have that right here. We're not better than you, and we're not telling you to get in boats and go away. But what we're telling you, what I'm telling you, is that what you believe is true. 3 years ago, we confirmed some of our oral stories with what was written down on these little scrolls. And this is significant because Rabbi Schulman actually came to Wisconsin in September and brought one of their little scrolls. The Torah is not written on a big lambskin all the time. It's actually written on these little tiny scrolls, the same as we do and have. But we confirmed that the first ones to come, we had the after the flood, and we had the migrations that occurred, but we confirmed that before the Europeans had come, the star people came. And their symbol we carry on our star lodges. It's 2 overlapping stars of David that we make by laying 2 sticks down in all directions. 2 sticks this way and 2 sticks this way. And then we connect the points this way, and it makes 2 stars of David that we discovered that they came. So, and they really did. So we reached out to them, and we reached out to the Reformed and Orthodox rabbinical orders. And I was even bold enough to approach like the most extreme of the extreme, the Hasidic. Because if they say yes, then what is your problem? So we didn't do that with any intention about anything to do with Mormons or anybody, Nephite record peoples. We did that Anishinaabe-Midu, people of kindness, and Israel. And we found union, and last November, they signed a joint proclamation with us that said, our 7 teachings are the same as their 7 teachings. And I know there's a lot of 7 teachings all over the place. They created a website to help you called unitetheworld.org. Specifically to work with us I'm trying to gather the indigenous peoples around the world because maybe there were more of them like us. That what we had, they have guesstimated. They presented this to us. We figured it out, Midegah. David. I said to the guy, well, it's David. He said, it's my word. I said, yeah, Shay. Fair enough. That, we came to see you about 2,500 years ago when our temple was destroyed. I said, bingo, I know that story. How is it that you have so many things that are so similar to the teachings of the Torah? You call this the Old Testament. Now, this is the European King's version, who wanted you to believe that God was like them, wicked and unforgiving and mean and, acts without emotion. So they picked and choose what they wanted the people to hear, and they chained them to pulpits until it was freed for you, and then you forgot they wrote it. Why don't you go back to the original source and see what that says? Well, they said, how do you have so much? And I told them, I said, well, you guys must have come before your temple was destroyed and you were drug off into captivity. If you're going to say, so I'm here to remind you, if you're going to say you're Israel, then you should know more than every 12-year-old child in Israel. Not less. They have an oral and written Torah. Why? You only know about the written, and of the written, you only know the version that's 6 translations deep that you got in English. That's been heavily modified, and it even lets you know on the front, this is the King James Version. It's the King's version. Well, what about God's version? You're not going to be prepared for what we reveal to you, which will shock you, until you see what they have first, because we have more. Why do we have more and they have less? Let's talk fact. When they were overrun and their first temple was destroyed, they were led into captivity and every single Torah was destroyed. Over a generation, they rewrote it from memory. And they didn't remember all of it. They hoped, by God, they did. But they didn't. And they decided this could happen again. So we'll write half of it physically, and the other half we'll keep orally in our synagogues or meeting houses. Honor their drop of water to get in their meeting house to know what it is they know. But to the Jew right now, they think you're more Jew than they are. Trying to say you're Israel. You're grafted into Israel. In any branch, whether it's small or big, that removes itself and tries to plant itself will die. You need the tree. We're a part of that tree. You're grafted into us. So we have a lot of stuff to share with you. But we have not found the right way to do it because of where your hearts are. I have found, as I came back into the Nephite records peoples, just to tell them my errand, which was that it's true. There's a lot more that's true too, that you don't know. And if it's true, then you have an obligation. You have a responsibility that you will be held accountable to, that when we rise again, you have been blessed to assist us, and you have been blessed above all others. Why? Because you're so special. And don't take it personal, okay? But if you come to our communities, we are the most impoverished of any communities outside of Africa, and yet we own everything. So how is that possible? Unless your governments aren't being good stewards. Well, you have to be good stewards of the knowledge that's been given to you, that you are spirits on this earth, living a mortal experience in a relationship with God, and you learn this because of a Nephite record that came into the most murderous, genociding, thieving people in the history of the world. from a little island that were on 5 continents, wreaking havoc. Sure, we had conflicts. You read about it in your Nephite records. Periods where we're good and periods where we're bad. We're not that different from each other at all. But even the Nephites, when they were rising, the Lamanites were falling. And when the Lamanites rose, Samuel was pleading, don't fall. And the Nephites fell. And if they had not, those 2 nations would have formed the greatest nation the world's ever known. And so now we're saying to those that we would call Nephites, holding the Nephite records, the Lamanites are rising in a knowledge and understanding of who we are. Don't fall. If you join with us and with each other together, miraculous things are going to happen in a short period of time. Our message is we have scrolls, and they are being translated by us because our elders still know the language. They're not going to be handed over to someone else who says they have seer stones to tell us what we can already read. They did not come from an angel. They were not pulled out of a box from the earth. They've been carried by us for millennia. We're just trying to tell you that we have something that we're going to share. And when we came to you, we first went to the Jews, so this should be a sign to you. We made a documentary so you wouldn't call us liars. You can go watch it. It's free. It is what it is. They're our friends. They love us. We're here to tell you that we'd like a language preservation institute because your people's almost destroyed that sacred gift the Creator gave to us. And when he came on our land and he landed at that sacred place our elders told you about 38 years ago, they came to remind those at Temple Lot. Do you know this is actually a heritage site for us? If we wanted to, we could take that away from anybody that thinks they have a piece of paper for it. That's a spiritual world heritage site for us. That's where the great peacemaker came down and landed. And all the peoples came together, and he sent the great law of peace across the land. And the runners went down all the rivers, and he stayed there and taught. And they all brought stones back, and they stacked them in that sacred spot. And after a period of time, and after he left, we built a great house that no one owned and no one controlled. It was a symbol of our unity under the master. And when he comes back, we will stand ready as any master who returns to his home. The servants are out front. But we had periods of war and bloodshed where we followed the letter of the law more than the spirit of the law. Brother, it says your spirit is trapped in your heart. Lay on the altar. I'm going to tear it out of your chest and free you. And bloodshed spread across the land. And that temple got torn down. And to not forget when we had to leave because the Europeans were coming, we put a large stone on the very spot he stood. When Joseph Smith stood there and was teaching, he couldn't get to the spot. He was at the edge. And he looked down, well, that's as close as I'm going to get. And he put the marker there. But as he was doing it, they recorded Indians were still coming and still putting rocks on the stone to remember that the great peacemaker would come back again. He loved us so much that he let us call him by the tongue that he gave to us. So all of the tribes say the same thing, but with their language. So we know about the Gichiyayan, the great teachers, mother and father. We know about the Chijak or Gijis. We even call the sky Gijig. Gijis, the power is the sun, light, life to all things. We didn't say he is the sun. There's people looking, you say, who is your, he made this. There's nothing greater and more vast than the sky, the universe, and light, the sun. And we know about the Chiba woman, the spirit. We know about these things, these three things that they said that in their words, it's the same. It's the same. And you say the same thing. You got a heavenly Father, you got a Son, and you got a Spirit, right? Well, you must have a heavenly mother too, because we have mothers. We have mothers. So we're releasing our records based upon the conflict we've seen within the Nephite record groups, which we did not know existed. Even I, as a Smith, had no idea. None whatsoever. But now I do. I'm not speaking as a member of a church. I'm speaking as a chief appointed to communicate to you. I'm not violating any personal faith. I have the right to my personal box that warms me, just as you. But I understand all our houses have electricity, and they warm you. And when you walk out in the cold, that warmth is still inside you as you call those to the master or the mayor of our great city. We need help with the Language Preservation Institute for all tribal peoples of North, Central, and South America. We need help with the Cultural Center, North, Central, and South America, just as they do in Hawaii. The government will not help us. We have a historical site that we have revealed to prove to you that what we're saying is true. And it's here in Missouri, and I went right to it based upon the instruction given to me. That has a baptismal font carved into the ground with stone circles and a spring bubbling up in the bottom. Has a big pyramid rock with a seat on top and seats where you're taught as the cave opens like you're coming out of darkness. A large stone that looks like wood. It's so intricately carved like a map. Like in school when you laid the cardboard down and you made it's just like that in stone, and it tells you're going somewhere. This looks like a quarry. We go there, and there's large monolithic rocks like Stonehenge all over. We go and we find the cylindrical mountain or the cone-shaped mountain, and on the top, a flat surface the size of a football field, and a large rectangular structure collapsed on itself with very large stones. And we marveled as we looked in the sky and said, they didn't fall from a mountain up there. And we're trying to find out who it is that's sacred enough that remembers these things to come with us there, as we want to dedicate that in January and start restoring it. Not to be taken away, but to prove to you that we have records that we've always maintained that proves the Nephite records are true. But there's a lot more to the story. And that we actually have physical proof of a site in Missouri that has a large cave that when you go into it, it'll make you want to weep, because you know, without a shadow of a doubt, that the first mother and father were there. We're trying to tell you that up at the Great Lakes is a mountain and a cave called Trap Rock, that we know on top of that, the first mother and father first spoke to the Creator, who told them to go name everything. And this is carried in our oral tradition and written. And that within that cave is where they were buried when they returned north from the garden they had been placed within, when the flaming sword caused everything to change visually. And we are in a rainbow veil from that sword in the sky. And that light that changed and bounces off everything and makes the illusion of colors when everything is one. Our spirits are all the same. The only difference between you and I is the experiences you have had and I have not. If I had been born in that mother's womb, surrounded by the people and the time, I would have walked a channel that makes me more you than me today, because I'd be seeking for my good at all times. So we should shed our sights so you can see I am you and you are me. So this is all we want to do, is to tell you that our governance lodges still exist, that we know where our sacred sites are, that we have sacred writings, and we'd like to affirm you and ask you to fulfill your obligation to assist us in saving our language and culture before it's gone forever. And is not the Nephite record enough to make you a part of our culture? Is not your culture different than Babylon? Are not your families and how you worship the Creator different than Babylon? Because of the reflection of our ancestors. And we're trying to keep that water flowing. But we need you to step in. We will not put on suits and ties. Some of us, like me and Sanajwan, look real good in suits and ties. We wear our customary clothing. Stop trying to make everybody the same flower. We wear our ribbon shirts. Everybody wears a little bit different, and they should all be able to sit together and to feel equal in their worship of the one Creator. And we should be able to use the name that makes us feel the connection because it's the language He gave to us. And we shouldn't be told that we have to change, or else we're in opposition to God. There is not a moment we are disconnected. We're trying to remind you, as you tell each other, and especially us right now, how bad we are. I'm like the internet apostate right now. I've even been called the anti-Messiah. I'm like, you're missing the mark. Missing the mark. We're trying to save you too. They called us Indians. This is not a derogatory term. We were called Indians before India existed. When they said, who are these people? Not all the people were rampaging savages killing people, all in the same name of the same God. Some of us, we had refuges of small populations that were living the good way. That we had been taught by the peacemaker. There were still patches doing that, small in number, but they endured. And they said, who are these people? And they said, Indios. In God, they're children of God. Today, you are the Indians. You are children of God. And they're coming for your families. They're coming for your spirituality. They're coming for your culture. The same things they did to us. They're dividing you. Who knows their neighbors anymore? Why not? You are the new Indians. So let's baseline right off the bat. You were formed in your mother's womb from the plants and animals she consumed that were grown and nurtured from this earth within which our ancestors now equally lie. You are the walking earth. You are the prayers of your ancestors made flesh today. You want to protect the earth. Protect your family first. That is the earth. The greatest creation in all the universe is the family. And we see the family in all of creation. And when you have the family as God made it, you have the greatest treasure in all the universe. Wherein is happiness found? In the veins of mountains? Or in the veins of your children, stretching back and forward eternally? You have to make that decision. We're not trying to say which house in the city is better. We don't want that fight, and neither should you. We're saying it's time to go to City Hall and sit in the seats together because the Master is returning. We have done enough signs for you. We made reconciliation on our own with the most hardcore of the hardcore Orthodox Jews. They'll be here in January to go to the sacred site with us. I hope your leaders will as well. We're releasing our scrolls. I have personally seen 2 books, binders this thick, that have already been translated. They said it's half, meaning you're going to get meaning that what you have in the Book of Mormon is like a 10th or a 15% of what we're about to release. So why would anyone fight that? This didn't come from an angel. This is just something we maintained and spread across the land. And that we are going to reveal a sacred site that's going to blow your minds. It's going to shock you and affirm everything you believe was true. What more signs do we have to have? Do we have to have darker skin, longer hair? I only cut my hair because my son died, my oldest son. I cut it again when my elder died last July. These are things we do to show a sign of mourning. Why? Because we believe that every strand of hair, maybe it's symbolic, but it helps you walk a better way. We think this is why mothers are more connected. But every strand of hair is a connection to an ancestor who's walking with you, holding on. And you know whose hands they're holding? The unborn generations. There's more of them than you. You're the bridge between the two. So let's start with the baseline. We all share the first memory together, the heartbeat of the mother. We all share the memory of that first heartbeat. It's the first image we will all equally see when we stand before our Creator. And then the second is the feeling of that heartbeat. And then that heart is inside you, which is why we say, Midday, we win the path of the Creator's heart that He placed in the mother. What's the strength of the mother? She'll stand by her child who has committed murder, the gravest of sins, and give them the unconditional love of their innocence. How strong is the mother? How much more in common does she have with the Creator than us? The mother carries the ability, the authority, and the power to make men and to make women that make men. That is an authority and a power. That is a priesthood they carry that we never will. Which is why in our lodges, we have men and women facing each other in equality. All things done as one, not over, not under, together. We are given the responsibility and the story that we carry that when the first man and woman were separated, this is why we are failing right now. The children of God have forgotten that when the first man and woman stood and faced each other, the man was told, I have given you strength and endurance to provide for and protect the strength and endurance of her, which are her unborn children. We execute. Our elders teach this teaching with the eagle feather. We don't just carry it around because we like feathers. Oh, it's just so hot. I'm just going to fan myself. Oh. No, and I am watching the clock, so we're okay. I am cognizant that I couldn't talk for so long that now when I get a talk, I talk. Hey, all things have like a backside to it too. The thin side of the feather on the eagle that flies the highest in the sky sees things you will never see. But we'll talk about humility in a moment. We'll talk about humility. The thin side of the feather sets direction. The thick side of the feather sets the execution, lift or descent. The thin side is the feminine. We should be focused on our families, our children, and all things that sustain them equally as them. We need to fly high. And the thick side is lift or descent. And because we've been in such a descent, we have been walking on the earth for a long time as an eagle. And it's not because of the mother. There's been a war against the mother. And they may attack me on the internet because everywhere I go, there happens to be more women that like Midegah. And it's because I'm not the man's champion. I am a war chief for the mother. I was not called as a peace chief. I was called as a war chief to remind the men of their responsibility and accountability, and especially if you are those of the Nephite records, you should know better. You should know better. So this is what we're trying to share. We're trying to tell you we'd like to go home, but we need you to be a participant in us going home. When I was younger, I used to climb trees, my sight distant, traveling with the wind in all directions. I journeyed ever higher to escape the pain held within. I had this idea of a far-off place, family waiting, looking for me, a warm embrace. Higher I climbed, if only I could see. Further I stared from the solitude of those trees. But there's a point when you become one with the rustling leaves, the gentle caressing breeze, the melodic birds who have a wisdom to impart. There's a peace you feel with the wind upon your face. When you are high up there upon the giants of the land, it is easier to understand the steps another takes. It is easier to understand that the journey home will not bring a cease to the scars left upon your soul, but the persisting seed, yearning in growth in the earth. It's adversity that helps you grow. I see my grandmothers and my grandfathers, my unbroken lines, our unbroken lines stretching back into time. They are our roots so that we may grow high. We were their purpose as they reached their hands high to the sky, calling upon the Creator to hear their pleas and calling upon 7 generations, don't forget about me. Human beings have walked this earth as shadowed reflections of their true form, and it's time to go back. It's time to go back. So who are you amidst the world's noise? Are you in another seas? Are you in another fields? Or are you the dream within your heart, written at your creation, whose light reveals warmth, love, compassion, and unity? We need more spirit, men and women. We need less American arrogance. We may be few, but it was the few who gave you a window into our past that made you strong today. You're on a Anishinaabe too. We're saying the same thing, but in our language. You are a spirit lowered. You are a spirit in a body, and you are recording a vision with God. It's time you start doing it. Doing it. With every thought, word, and action. Your free will is the space between your breath and your heartbeat. Forgiveness, repentance and forgiveness is on each side of that. Stop judging each other. I am not the perfect guy, and yet I'm the one here. If you knew my sins, and only a fraction are they sharing on the internet, I'll vocally tell anybody all of them. Why? Because I know without a shadow of a doubt that I have a Creator who was the Lord and Savior, who gave his life to atone for the sins that I would do, so that when I repented, I would be forgiven. And that he himself will take me to his Father's door of that mansion in heaven and present me as all my sins and yours burn away in the fire like kindling to ash. Go grab a room, good and faithful servant. Welcome home. Each of us have a place there, whether you are in amnesia or you know it all, whether you are wealthy or you are poor, whether you were born in a desert or in a rainforest. We're all going to go home. So let's start treating this place like home right now. In the Torah, it says, it's not that we have to go to heaven first, it's that we have to bring heaven here. It says that God, the Creator, God, the Creator, loves it more when men dwell together in kindness and love, in unity, even more than them following the commandments he has given, because he knows in being kind and united that you are following his commandments, because he's patient. The men need to provide a seat for the Creator of men, the woman, and stop your war on her. She has a priesthood, you never will. And if you don't think she has a priesthood, that is the authority and power to create. And we have created hell on this earth. And they are creating life to try to fix our hell. And will we be willful participants? Or will we be arrogant and prideful? So that's my message to you. We want to come here. I want to bring the elders here. Tonight, they're going to talk at the JCRB with some apostles. We wish that all men and women were apostles and all men and women were prophets. And it says in the scriptures that that could be so. That could be so. And we would call for those who believe that they're the only ones that have anything to remember. The historical record says, and I'll close with this, top of the hour. The historical record says those people that have a prophet sent to them that endures are the ones dwelling in wickedness. And wickedness is arrogance and pride. And when you hold our history and tell us we still have no voice, that's pride. When we say we want to present our history and our sites and you say we cannot, that's pride. When you say, what percentage are you? That's pride. Your nation is better to have us than our own? It's a family. Do you go to your neighbor's house and tell them your children are better than mine? Are you the king in their house? Are they the king in your house? Are you the queen in their house? Are they the queen in your? No, you have respect. Start showing us some too. Start showing us some too. We are not trying to replace anything. We're trying to call you to what you already know and already have. We're not making a new church. And we're not going to throw everything we've carried away to just join your house. We have what we have that has endured to this time for you to be able to come together again. How sacred must it be? We don't see many of you talking to the Hasidic Jews. And that's tough. But they call us brothers now and sisters. And they'll call you that too. So that's what I have to say. I think we're going to say Chief Midegah. I'd like to share a song with you before I go. So I had another song I was going to sing, but I think I will. Give me a second. So in our lodge, we have an elder who sits in the head seat, and he'll sing songs. And the songs are important because it's like, I mean, that's what you were hearing in the womb, your mom singing to you. Every one of you, that's why you like music. It's from your mom. So, but here's a song that he sings to start it off that, man, next time I go back, I'm going to sing it. But it says, let us respect ourselves and let us gather together. Let us respect our original shared roots. Let us help one another. Let us help with the Creator's intention for why he put us here. Let us find that final spirit of unity. Geb mi de damenej dan delioli nudik nigmaj tut mawi danej. Geb me de dominage dan wedebeg sul dig nigmaj tu. Abon nal dindage. Abon mal don dindage dan gisuk deliga luxig. Wula wuxig hamu weya heyo. Weya heyo, weya heya, weya heyo, weya heya. Weya heyo, weya heya, weya heyo, weya heya. Chief Midegah, thank you from my heart. Yep. So you guys want to do a Q&A? Or do you want to go eat?
I just want to ask one question.
Yeah, sure.
Were you taken away from your parents?
No, so in the United States, I was born May 1978. And if I had been with my father, that would have happened when I was 7. But I was with my mother. In August of 1978, all the anti-Indian laws were lifted. We had the Indian Religious Freedom Act, we had the Indian Child Safety Act, we had the Health Care Act, we could go to a hospital. You know, because before that, from 1960 to 74, if you had a baby, you were immediately sterilized. If you went for a checkup, you were sterilized. If you were sick, you were sterilized. If you got pulled over in a car, you were taken and sterilized.
And that also included many men.
Yep. Horrific. Why are you so few of a number, as the politicians say? I don't know. You put the boot on our neck. 1978, it ended. If I had been born in Canada, that did not end until 1999. I would have 100%. And I know teachers today that are my age, maybe a few years older, that had children in the late 90s, maybe like 6 or 7 years older than me, that one of them, Isaac Murdoch, actually shares about, and he's like the most prolific artist that we have, that from like 1996 to 1999, he was hiding with his daughter and his wife in the nature with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of others trying to keep their kids from being taken. You want to break a people, take their children. And so when you hear me talking and you think that we're equals, and I should just be happy to be an American, I am the voice, the living prayer of my ancestors made flesh, who happen to be my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents. This is a genocide I can touch in one generation. And so when you say, well, just let it go, or it's not that big of a deal, or it's not, you would not accept the same in your life even today. When we have to say, do we have enough blood quantum for our children to be in our nation's, Bureau of Indian Affairs, please let us know. You have a government that has 970 treaty communities recognized by Congress and the court, Supreme Court. But you have an executive branch that acts like a monarch and only provides services to 574. What about the other 400? You've been led to believe that they're not recognized, so they're pretendians now. They'll never let go. They'll never let go. 55 tribes in California, 80,000 people still exist. But to the American, pretendians. You're not federally recognized. By who? I will say it again. Are you 3 branches that are co-equal, or are you a monarchy? And if you're a monarchy, then you must have a king. And if you have a king, he's abusing us, and maybe we should issue a Declaration of Independence too and list all the grievances, because ours are far worse, even in the modern age. And so you have to choose which camp you're in right now. There are nations in the world, as I told you, Germany and Israel, that are teaching in their books the genocide that is occurring right now here, that you're not aware of, but you will be held accountable in the global public opinion. Pick your canoe. We need a sponsorship of 2 nations to file our genocide articles in Geneva, and we have them. We have it. So what will happen? Which side of history will you be on? Right? You're people in Nephi records. You're one of us. So actually start living it. Correct people when you hear them talking nonsense. Percentage. What are you talking about? What percentage of American are you? right? Any other questions? Oh, I can just go. Hey. Yeah.
Regarding the temple, that I believe that's what it is down in southern Missouri.
Yeah.
My understanding, based on your culture, based on Jewish tradition, that the temple, if your people came from like through Lehi, they would have more of a Jewish tone to that type of a temple or understanding. Probably not so much like what the current LDS church is operating under and the things that are done in that type of a temple. Do you have knowledge or understanding of what will happen in your temple when that's
It's not
recreated?
that, we do. It's actually not that far off. We reached out. So yes, we know it is a temple. We didn't build things with stone because we wanted Walmarts, okay? And we didn't build big mountains high up in the sky because we were trying to, make gas stations or whatever. Like, this is a temple. So we do know what occurred in our temples. We try to recreate it with our lodges. When you go into a teaching lodge, and there's 4 rooms of the Midday we win, which again, you would say, well, there's not a lot of them left. Yeah, because we were the remnant of what we originally believed. That's why we tied to the Nephite records. We're the few and far between that still exist in the traditional governance. And so we have 4 rooms, and these encompass the creation story of the first mother and father. But not only that, but the 6 angelic beings before that we call Monadolk. We have that story too. Why would we have that story? They were made, and we were supposed to know about it because mankind was supposed to have helpers here. But they're neutral. They're not swinging one way or the other. They follow God exactly, and they don't know what we're doing. We've lost the ability to communicate, and they're not going to help us because they're looking at us like, you guys are crazy ants. So they're waiting for us to reconnect, but we have their story. We want to share that because we'd like you to understand how to reconnect with them and see them manifest in our daily lives again, because they're there and they will. So those that we wanted to know about sealings, this type of thing, because we actually have that in our culture. We know it's there. We call it the binding of the Chiba woman, that a man and woman, when they were born, I just have to share this with you because you pulled the string, okay? It's so amazing to me. And we really wanted to know that when you were made like the Gichayayan, in a masculine and a feminine, and separated. And when you were baptized into this earth, you were baptized through the sacred water of the mother. You were baptized. Now, there's not another way for you to go back into your mother on this earth that's broken. So you go into another mother called the earth. That's a mother. She gives life for free to you. And you go into her womb, which is the water. And you're being baptized from her. You're actually making an obligation to protect her too. And many don't know that, and they should. And so, what was the question again? I got on a tangent.
What's the purpose?
Yeah, so we had asked around a bunch. Hey, what are you guys all doing? We found there's a group that's Nephite record people that don't have temples. We found those are Nephite record people that have temples, that do some things and don't do others. And we found those that are Nephite records people that have temples and do all this other stuff. And so we would say that none of them are doing everything that we know. None of them. And we also know that right from the very beginning, in most of them, they're telling less than what a 12-year-old child in modern Israel would know. And so if you believe that you are restored, then you're missing the mark. The restoration is a restoration of the peoples of the Nephite records. And the restoration is not complete until we are restored. We have to be restored. And so in the process of being restored, we're going to provide to you the proof as to why Lehi sent his boys, Laman, Lemuel, Nephite, and Samuel, to go get the Torah. God knew it would be destroyed, and then we would have that fullness when we were restored from a remnant, the few that remain. And when we reveal that, there's a lot more going on right from the get-go. So you're looking at it like Dante's shadow. You know the story of the philosopher, and you're actually in a cave watching a shadow of a light flicker on a wall. So we're closer to the door. And that's why you've kept not you metaphorically, but they've kept the boot on our neck, because the serpent doesn't want anyone to know. Because when they know the greatest story in the history of the earth is the creator that came and walked on it. And we made a house to him, and we didn't operate it because he operated it with his cherubims and seraphims and sentinels. And that's our great call to those in Independence. As we're down south working on restoring our historical thing, we know that that was still our practice room from when we came to where he was. And when you walk in, it's his people that will guide you to the curtain, and the sentinels that will hand you to his hand and will guide you in. He will operate his house. So let it be a symbol of our unity at that place you call Temple Lot. All of you sit in a circle and make a symbol of your unity, knowing that he himself will show up with his crew, his band, his drum group, and he'll show us the proper way. So whatever we have, we still know, even though it's more than what they have. I can take any 12-year-old in modern Israel that's had their bar mitzvah and tell me the creation of man and woman, and they'll tell you point blank, there's no, you're formed together, connected back to back, and separated at the rib, stared at each other. Same story we got. So if you're doing the rib thing, that's because you only had a few sentences from the written versions that the Greeks could find that were translated into Latin and German and 6 other languages before you got it in English. That the reason that they didn't know that is because they never actually went into the synagogues and learned that that's actually only, like you literally, they have a book they gave me, and it has in bold the stuff that they allowed. It looks like a codex, like they intentionally tried to hide the truth from people, right? Because they're afraid it would disappear. So we know we have more, but we know when he comes back, he's going to have more than all of us. And then everybody will lockstep with him and go to their little practice houses and practice with each other, all doing the same thing, so that then they make the journey and go to his house and go meet him. Right? Yeah, because that was a big thing. Well, who's going to run it if we make it? Nobody. He will when he comes back. Well, who's doing it the right way? Nobody. We all have shadowed reflections. Any other questions? Does that answer your question?
Totally.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, I really care about you guys a lot. I wouldn't be moving to Missouri. I wouldn't be traveling here while I'm actually not well and leaving my sons when I could have this time with them if this wasn't important to me. And just because you have a personal revelation that Jesus Christ exists, and just because you have a physical experience with him, and many have, doesn't mean you're coming to lead the world. It just sets you on the path. And guess what? He generally does that to those that are the biggest sinners. Go look at Saul, okay? I probably had more in common with that guy. So, but again, for those that want to prod me, I will openly share the depths of my sins in open audience, and I have. Go watch the Martin Braden interview. And I'll go even further. I'll tell you everything, because I want everything in the open, because I know I'll see him again. And it doesn't matter what you think. It matters that he took it away from me. He took that away. And you should consider as you talk, not you, but there are those that would prefer to focus on the things that I don't do right. Or on but what they're actually doing is reflecting on the things they don't do right. That when I meet my Lord and Savior, my Heavenly Father, and he says, "Who are you?" I'm going to say, "I'm Dad. I'm Dad, the greatest gift I've ever been given. And everything you say about me and write about me, my children will read and hear." And in that moment, my prayer is they won't judge you for being wrong, because they know me. And there's nothing that I did worse, nothing that I did worse than not giving my oldest son the time he needed so that his heart was strong enough that he wouldn't take his own life when his life didn't go his way. And that happened in May of 2022. And no one will ever hurt me more than that hurts me every second of every day. And so I would pray that for those that seek that's contention to come against people trying to live the forgiven life, and you keep trying to drag them back because you're the worthy saint, to remember that none are worthy of heaven. None. It's a gift. The only ones that are worthy would be those that can deal equally with the widow, beggar, orphan, and professing sinner as equally as they do with their spouse, their child, their sibling, and last on the list, the professing saint. Because when you are the saint, then you have nowhere else to go but down. So this is what you get. And I'm doing my very best. Yep.
I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I have a question. What made you fall in love with Jesus Christ?
That's a good question, because I tried to, when I was 19 years old, I had a pretty tough childhood. I'd sit at the table with anybody and say, this is impossible that this happened in America, but it did. Before I was 9 years old, I had been in shootouts. I had seen body dismemberments. I had been a part of massive drug trades on the coast. I had been kidnapped for a couple years. I had lost my tongue. I had a father in prison. I was around people that were really they were struggling children. They were struggling works of art of their mother, because that's what they are. And so I had a lot of hatred towards God. As a teenager, I was homeless for 2.5 years in school, and yet I was this big renowned athlete for running. But running was my way to try to get away from everything. And when I was 20 years old, I had a dream that's for me, that told me that my God loved me. But I still didn't love him. I still didn't love him. I had daughters, 3 daughters. And even when I was even going to church all the time, and I even was like having these miraculous things happen, because I would just share our spiritual stuff and my spiritual side. This is a long answer, man. It's a good question, though. But I still was running from my childhood through my 20s. Well, that caused me to run from my family. You can cheat in a lot of ways. Time. I wasn't there for my wife. I wasn't there for my kids, my daughters. I was there for the Marine Corps, and picking up a ton of scars along the way, and getting more angry as my friends would die. And I spent 2 weeks with a friend who had 70 pounds of water weight in his head. And so I had a lot of anger. And then I had some years where I was absolutely lost. If you had met me in my early 30s, you would literally, if I could meet me in my 30s, boy, that would be a serious butt whooping. But I was there. It was the first time I was there when one of my children were born. I wasn't there when my son was born. I wasn't there when my daughters were born. But when my son was born, my son David, I was there. And I was the first person he saw when he came out of her. I was the first one that held him. He had the umbilical cord tightly, and the doctor had to take care of it. So I had to hold my son as he was turning blue. And the first thing they did is they opened my shirt and they put him on my chest. And they let me lay with my boy. In that moment, I was in love with the Creator. I wasn't really sure who the Creator was, because everybody has like a different, but at that moment I knew he gave that to me. That was the gift for me. And it's what causes me to cross the ocean twice a month for him. And then I had another son. And those 2 boys, they had dad. They've had dad. And that's the greatest gift I could ever had saved me. And when my life was falling apart, I was dad. And when I was with them, I was a reflection of the highest qualities of my Heavenly Father. I'd lay my life down for them as the Creator did at any moment. And as they looked to me, it was with absolute love, safety, security that I was there. I was dad, or I am dad. And I understood that the greatest treasure in the entire world is time there. And so when I had my moment where I physically saw with my own eyes my Lord and Savior, that was my gratefulness. Thank you for letting me be a dad. There's nothing more in this world that I want to do. I don't even want to be here. I don't know why I have to be the one to talk to you. There's a lot of other people that could. But maybe I'm the one that's like the caterpillar that knows that everything wants to destroy it and still plugs along. I'm the duck paddling, the water will run off. Because I know He allowed me to become a butterfly. And that's what I am when I'm a dad. And I got an Instagram with 1,700 photos and videos over a 6-year period where I got a 7- and 9-year-old that have never been scarred by me. Never. And I showed them love unconditionally at all times. In time, I've never had to spank them. I've never had to raise my voice to them because they've never felt the vision. They've never felt they had to reach for something. It was always there. And I'd say that great gift of allowing me to be a dad, and then when they were taken away and taken to Germany, and I took a leap of faith and reached back for the stick, and it was there. I crossed the ocean, slept on a park bench, and He rebuilt my life to be able to be with them. Because He honors those that honors their family. And for those professing to be saints that think they know something about me, you don't know anything about me until you've seen me as a father. Everything else is a shadowed reflection of who I am. That's who I am. And so that's when I fall in every time I am with my sons. I fall in love with the Lord and Savior and Creator. And as I told the Jews, is it not written in your Tanya, spiritual book no one knows about, written parallel with the Torah by the guys that were teaching the Torah? No one knows. That it says that all things in the physical were first in the spiritual. If He created in the physical, and they say He did, then that means He was creating in the spiritual, and we know in the spiritual there's only one Creator of all things seen and unseen. And so I'm grateful that He chose to make it this way so that I can be a dad. I'm going to get through the next week and a half, and then I'm getting on a plane, and I'm going to go be a dad. And all the stuff they say on media, because they don't want our records to come out. They don't want to lose control. They don't want unity. They want everyone to go to one house. They don't want our sites to be revealed. They don't want all of you to sit in a circle. So they want to attack the messenger. Well, get over it. If you don't like it, you're going to learn to love it. Because I'm the moose. And whether it's 3 feet of snow or 20 feet, I'm plowing ahead. You're not going to stop it. Because every time I get weak, He restores me with the fact that I get to be a father, which means I have a father. And as I love my sons and they love me, if I love Him, He loves me, and He loves me, and I love Him. That's a long answer to that. Yeah. So there's nothing.
Somebody had a question online for you. Can
Yeah,
I read
let's.
that to you?
Yeah, sure.
This is from Jay Stone. He
Hey.
says,
Love that guy.
yeah. You hear that, Jay?
I love that guy. He's a.
What are your thoughts on the New Jerusalem, Zion City, and the return of Enoch and the 10 tribes?
Hey, this is actually fascinating. So the first story, so what's Zion? What's the New Jerusalem? It's a city of peace.
Can
It's
you
a-
repeat the question I asked you so that people online can hear you?
Yeah, sure. So I was asked, what is the New Jerusalem and what is Zion and what is the return of the city of Enoch? What is this? Well, Zion is peace. Zion is unity. And we used to dwell in a city of peace and unity. And we left that place when we created the celestial kingdom. The first walls were not made to protect you from anything on this earth. You are the earth. The first walls were to trap you in systems to destroy it. And then the walls came down, and then you blindly think, I must continue to do it. The first story that was told to the Jews by Elder Ogig Wanabik, Solomon Wadi of the Algonquin, was, hey, you know how we got into this continent? There was a long time ago that we tried to build a large mountain to touch the Creator. We weren't trying to touch the sky. There was a city in the sky that was lifted from the earth that we could see, that was shining gold like the sun. And we were trying to go to that, but it wasn't time. It wasn't time for us. So the mountain was destroyed that we built, and the city was removed so that we would not seek to go to it. And we were divided and sent in all directions. When after the flood, we were together as one. Well, there is a time when we will be able to walk into that city, meaning the city has to come back. And it will come back. But we have to be united to walk into it, because there will be none in opposition or war to it. And he even says that after he comes and visits us, he's going to go over there and finish the conflict like that so that we can all come home. So we're asking the Nephite peoples, the Nephite record peoples, to remember that, and that together we can start now to take the steps towards that city of peace, that unity of peace. When the great peacemaker stood at that place called Temple Lot, he sent the runners out 15 miles, and they went in a big circle, 15 miles. There's actually stones, if we were to take you, they make a large circle. And that was supposed to be a sacred place where we were supposed to dwell in unity and harmony. And we've forgotten about that. So we will once again restore this to a sacred place. And when we do, that will be a great sign that it's ready for them to come back. He will show himself to us and then go finish the job. Before he shows himself to us, the Gadianton robbers will be wiped clean here on this land. So remove yourself from them now. That doesn't mean you don't need to work and you don't need to eat and but there are things that you should do. So sit in a circle and talk about it. We're not your master. The Creator's your master. So if we all talk about it, maybe we'll find a better way. So that's what's going to happen. It's coming back. When it does happen, we know it'll be like a new sun seen in the sky. That's how big this thing is. And it'll reflect the light like the sun, but then you'll see it's gold. It's a big golden city, and it'll be returned. It'll touch on the earth. But how's it going to know if we don't show that we remember? How's the Creator going to know you're His if your heart is in Babylon? If your pride pushes the mother down and is at war with her generations? And are you not at war with them if they will not have fresh air and clean water and any food to eat? What do you want? A world that's a big mall? A big box? You'll miss running water. You'll miss trees. So why are you destroying them? If you go hunting, it doesn't say that you don't hunt, but if you see a mother and a child together, and the mother is the reflection of that heavenly mother, and the child is the reflection of us with God, why would you kill the animal that's a mother and a child? If you see two males, why would you take both? How many generations did you remove? And what about his right to be a father? We have to see things clearly. We do have to eat, right? But do we have to treat animals the way we do? You make the decision if you continue that by what you buy. And right now, there are millions and millions of cries to the creator of spirits and bodies, of mothers and children tortured. And you buy it off the shelf and eat it, and you put that into your body. So how will he know if you are in Babylon? So maybe you should step out of it so he knows. Maybe you should be a peculiar people. Maybe you should be as bold and courageous as your pioneer ancestors, as those who walked with Moses out of the celestial kingdom of Egypt, the breadbasket of the world at that time, with a large man-made mountain that reflected the light as if a star sat on the earth. And he took them to a desert where they had to live day to day like every other being on this planet, to remind them God gives life, not you. To a charred mountain, visually the worst thing you could see on the earth. His worst creation is better than anything we can make. iPhones are nothing compared to what he will give us. So do we have that courage? Or when we restore our sight, which we will, and we call all of our people home, will you call the police and have us arrested as vagrants? Will you allow your National Guards to drag us off to jail because we're trying to come home? Or will you stop us and say, well, what percentage are you? And what percentage are you? We call everyone home. We're calling you too. We're saying, hey, you better step aside right now because he's about to step in. And it's not going to be nice. He's not going to come back and be like, you got it right. Hey, who's going to help me get my Social Security card and my birth certificate? I got to get a driver's license. And who's going to give me a job? He's not going to do that. He's going to say, hey, listen, hey, their right to be here is that heart in their chest. Period. Any other questions? Nothing else. Okay. Well, say there. Yeah, sure.
What do the records say concerning this time period will cause the mighty change of heart where people come together to live by the heart of the Creator?
Yeah. That's a great question. So what she's saying is, what do our records say would be the transition point that would cause people to change? Well, we know that you've already been being prepared. Before he left, we begged him and pleaded with him, will you please tell us one more thing? We know you said this, but we want to know what's it going to be like for us and for those that are here, because he was trying to tell us that there was going to be a white snake coming. We didn't know what that meant. It's going to consume everything. Let me tell you about the red snake and the black snake, and let's talk about the Indian prophet. And so he talked about a white snake that was going to come onto our land to consume everything. It would almost consume the world. But when it did that, those that it was consuming would form another snake called a black snake. It's the shadow. It's those that are the afflicted by this system. And that would grow in power as well and would always want to get back at the white snake. And surely, I don't know if you've noticed, but the rest of the world doesn't think so highly of you, like at all. And unless you've been there, you don't understand why. You think you just took stuff from us. You're taking stuff from them too. A lot. And he said, but there would be a red snake. You're the red snake and you're going to get weak. You're going to get beaten down. But when the red snake, when you rise again, this is reaffirmed in our Seven Fires prophecy. But he said, when you start to rise again, you'll confront that white snake while it's eating its own tail. It's fighting itself. And so we watched the white snake. And we saw the white snake in the last couple of years, that you're not even American anymore. You're a Democrat or Republican, and your media talks about it as if you are different people, and you're different people, and you're not the same. And you don't have the ability to switch back and forth. You're red or blue. And so we know the white snake is eating its own tail right now. And the red snake will start to rise. And as the red snake is rising, there will also be a restoration in an original place, in a place we call of many hills. You'd call that the Mark Twain National Forest. And so, yeah, there'd be a kickoff event that had happened. I'll just leave it at that. But that was enough for them to know this was the time. And so then we therefore know what the black snake and white snake and red snake will do with each other. And so therefore, from the red snake, they have a responsibility to go back where they're from and start to pull people away from that. But the problem is that almost like a cult-like mentality, too many today are waiting for some second savior who's going to be some special servant who's going to do for you what you can do for yourself. Our responsibility right now is to drop a seed in your heart for you to realize that you are the servant, each one of you, of the master. That it's a collective body of the master, the body of Christ. And so that's my responsibility, is to remind you that I'm not who you think I am. You are who you think I am. And that there will be a drop of water who's told to go water the land, and will inspire many drops of water to lift from the sea and to move. And when they get to that place, all the drops of water will not then look at the one drop of water and say, okay, water the land. They all have to fall equally. They all have to do the work. And so we know that this is this time, without a shadow of a doubt. And he doesn't call saints. He calls the most imperfect to show you that the worst can be turned for good. And I can tell you that there were very few that were worse than me. But I have the ability to be good. So, does that answer your question?
Part of it.
Yeah. Well, what part don't you get? What was the...
I was asking for if the records had an event or.
You're in the middle of it.
This is time.
Yeah.
But if they talked about an event that was specific to that mighty change.
Yeah, our elders would be inspired to gather our records in the age of the seventh fire to begin for the eighth, that our sacred city would be restored publicly, and that the people would be called to unity, and they would come. And so we know that that happened. The elders had their own personal revelations and reasons to gather our records, because even they had their pride. I have more than that lodge, and I have more than that lodge. I have more songs than you. We're the same, we're humans. That would happen. And then we had some things happen spiritually that caused us to go inquire, and I happened to be the one that walked right to it the very first day I went to go. So, and I don't want to go too much into that other than I knew exactly where it was. So, we'll restore that. We can't do it alone. We need your help. We think it would add value to your life and your faith. We think you'd want to willfully participate in it, as I see them like they like to pour concrete and build things. So, I mean, why not restore something that's a part of your faith? And then that we would be able to come home. So I'm doing the preparatory work for us to come home. And I'm doing it while I have my own personal struggles too. And I'm hoping that you and your struggles would willfully choose to participate. You got free will. Nobody controls that temple between your heartbeat and your breath. That's free will, that's yours. So if I can inspire you to willfully choose to participate, then we're there. Then we're there. So that's the event, the gathering of the records, the revealing of the records, the restoration of where we came from. We did that. The revealing of our sacred site that brings you together in one purpose. And then you actually do it. So I would say that we would know he's really close the moment that all of you figure out how to put your pride down and to sit in a circle and rebuild his house. Not just the one we built to copy and get ready, but the house that none of us govern, that we all watch and wait for his sentinels to return. I'd say right at that moment, which is going to happen fast, and it's going to happen so fast you wouldn't believe it, that then you would know. But there's no miracle. No one's going to do for you what you have to do. If you're looking for, like someone tried to tell me, oh, it's going to be this character on a white, not Jesus, a guy on a horse with a sword and knocking down with the back of his hand, like a Jimi Hendrix song. No, it's the body of Christ. It's the body of Christ. So the body of Christ has to come together. Does that answer your question? And so you will see the body of Christ come together fast. And as I know, as I was informed in the last meeting we had, that many of those organizations that sat in the room with us in my last visit hadn't talked to each other hadn't been in a room with each other in 50 years. They hadn't had that many groups together in 180 years. We got one seat open. We're waiting for them to lean their teepee pole in too. But that's going to take overcoming pride. So, and American arrogance. Yeah. So.
Well, last time you were here, you were talking about the 3.5 years, and then you said
Yep.
Nimrod. Who is Nimrod?
Yeah, so you haven't seen him yet. So.
I mean, is it good or bad?
Now, we know, and people say, hey, call us liars. It's okay. Just the crazy Indians, right? They're the last gasps of a dying corpse, right? Well, I'd say, hey, I don't think so. So we know that we know that the next 7 years are representatory of the last 7,000 years. We have this written. We talk about this. The Jews believe it as well. And that the first 3,000 years was rapid growth of the celestial kingdom. That we knew before the election, and we kept telling you, like, this will be, I said it, like, we already knew that the next 3.5 years will be symbolic of the first 3,500 years. Rapid, you will see the peaks. The peak of America is not yet happened. And who's that statue holding the torch with the chain on the leg that's broken? Many don't even know that the Statue of Liberty, when it's given, was a mold of Lucifer chained, and the actual mold the actual one is over in Europe, and you don't even know it. You think liberty, freeing you from God, freeing you from responsibility, accountability, freeing you to treat each other however the heck you want, saying whatever you want. You know, in Germany, if you call somebody a bad name, they arrest you for 24 hours. You have to show dignity and respect. So no one even knows that. So I learned that in a philosophy class that's taught in every single university. But it's kept a mystery to everybody. So there will be a rapid growth in the next 3.5 years. So why is that? Because when God knows that his people will need the ability to build the things they need, he's going to bless the civilization they are in for the spillover. You're going to be blessed too. But what are you going to do with that wealth? Are you going to use it for your pride and arrogance? Because it'll be the largest accumulation that's ever occurred in the body of Christ. Or will you use it to build Zion? Because when that's done, now you enter the age of Nimrod and the decline. And then you'll see the last 4,000 years. And the worst is the last 1,000. There's been more. If you take the last 1,000 years of disease and warfare and you throw it into 1 year and experience, what are they going to be? What are they fighting over? So we tell everybody, hey, all you that like to talk about these names of these people, you might want to look at the next the next cycle when all the people you think you know in politics are going to be gone. I'm sorry, but they will. Everybody's had their terms. You're going to see somebody talks better than me. Looks, I'm not as ugly as I could be. Right? Yeah. You'll see. But will you be drunk in wealth and drunk in pride and blind in arrogance and we're there? Right? Or will you see, oh my gosh, this is the last gasp of the celestial kingdom that will destroy itself. Remove yourself from it. And who has the ability to do that today? Who knows how to eat if they can't go to a store? And yet you have nothing in common with your grandparents that knew how to grow a garden. I'm sure there are those here that have that. But the earth grows things for free to eat. And yet you're going and buying this garbage made from chemicals. I do it too. I got to get away from that as well. And that's what we're going to try to do here in Missouri down south. We've got a 3,000-acre area that we're going to make into a refuge for our people, which is you two. And it's going to look peculiar to those around us. They're going to call us, oh, you must be crazy Indians, right? But we know what's coming. Just as the animals know before the tsunami hits. We feel it. And all of you eat the Indian, think, oh, you're so spiritual. You're connected to the spirit. You're more, everybody thinks that, oh, tell me your wisdom, your sage advice. When you see the feathers, right? Well, then we're telling you, can't you feel it?
Yes.
Don't you feel it? And do you think that mob rule, that there's any pride in saying, ooh, 50.1%, screw you, 49. Let's do everything we can for us, screw you, because then they're going to get it. Screw you, that's division. That's right. Hey, listen, this system's skinning you from the ear down and the ankle up. But it's screwing you. Yep.
So when Joseph of Egypt stood before his brothers, he looked like an Egyptian, but he wasn't.
That's right.
And I believe it was him being able to speak the language and showing the sign of the covenant. My question to you is, what do you think the sign of the covenant will be when we meet our brothers and sisters? Because we have to know them. And right now we look Egyptian. And we don't recognize our brothers and sisters as being Israel.
That's right. Well, what makes Israel special is something you don't know. They believe in a pre-existence. No one ever asks them. They believe that there are spirits in temples. Nobody asks them. And they also believe that they're recording a journey with God and they'll return. They all believe that. Same thing as the Nephite record peoples do and as we do. And so I guess when you walk into a room, like I know, when I walk into a room, when I'm with those who know that they are spirits in a mortal experience, when you meet somebody and they introduce themselves as a divisive term, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm an American, I'm a Canadian, I'm a Mexican, I'm an Ohioan, they've already lost it. I'm an engineer. Your profession is not who you are. That's something you do to buy food and put shelter over your head. What are you talking about?
I'm Israel.
Yeah.
100%. Every cell of who I am.
That's right.
It's in my DNA. I know.
You're changed.
I know.
Yeah. That's right.
I've stood with the mothers of Israel. I know I'm Israel. But how are we going to recognize our brothers?
Yeah, it's
Because me being Israel and you being Israel, we should be able to recognize each other.
it's communication. So if we can say the same things that we agree on, then you know. So like when we meet each other, this is why we introduce ourselves always, is we say who we are at all times. If you're in a room, you'll hear someone say their name like 30 times over. But then you'll see those who don't. And then you know they're not the same as you. And so I think that's something you should remember when you meet somebody is that you should probably introduce yourself properly. I think we'll know by how we introduce ourselves and communicate with each other. That there must be some way that you know, that I know, that we're spirits, you know? And so I think that's the place we're trying to get to. I don't have all the answers on that. But I know when I meet people, I know who it is I can talk to. I feel it. You know your own. I also know when I walk into a room and I don't want to say anything because if I did, I'd be flipping tables. Right? That's right. That's right. And it can't be, well, I just don't like what I'm hearing, so therefore you're not of God. Man, your opinion means nothing in the story. Well, we're not living our culture right now. So we have to live our culture. You know, when you go into Crown Heights in New York, the Jews know the Jews. They have chosen to live their faith perfectly. Now, letter of the law can also be imperfectly too, right? So I think when we have a community that puts family first, that understands that children will learn more from their parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles more than in a box somewhere for 8 years or for 8 hours a day, taught by people something that they made up somewhere you'll never know, you'll never meet them. I think when we are seen as a peculiar people again in our actions, that we'll know. But we're not there yet. That's why we're asking you, will you please restore the peace amongst yourselves and with your God and with the earth and protect it all? You will separate yourself. You will bring your systems together and use them for good things. And then you will see a difference between them and you. But right now, we don't know, do we? Unless people show up and we talk. And I'm sure there are some in here and rooms that we go to that are just curious, that don't believe the same, right? So I disagree. I think pray. When I had my vision, when I fasted for 8 days, the one thing that stood out the most was I had a moment where I saw something. And it was that prayer is actually the foundation of all things. And it's the prayer of the Creator and the Father. But I saw our prayers in there too. And you could feel it. So I think we can do, when people say, what can we do? Oh, we want to just throw money at something. No, I think probably pray first. But I think these things will be revealed. Right now, we're just not there. We're still trying to get everyone in the room. You know? So I think pray. And those things will reveal themselves. And don't expect one person to solve it for you. Everybody has to sit in a circle and look at the fire and say, what's that fire going to look like? How is it supposed to look? And then let's do it. Probably that. Everybody has a view. You know, like the doctors I go to, they have tons of different doctors that say different things. I need all of them, not one. Yeah. Or no. Hey, you might be onto something there. Yeah, I got to go back and see my elders about that. Any other questions? Okay. That's a good question. Oh, you got another one? Okay. Do we want to eat? Okay. Sanajwan, do you want to say anything before we go, or do you want to give the closing prayer?
Sure, I'll do it.
So we have an Indian apostle. And for us, this means a lot, that we have found our way into your circles to have a voice of our people, that the Creator and the Savior has given you someone to help you understand us, and he means a lot to us. And so I hope he means a lot to you too. And so Sanajwan, if you want to come up. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah. Do I need this? Okay. Plus, I like standing on the X here. Anyhow, I wanted to say thank you all for coming again this evening and to continue to learn and dialogue. I think it's really important because we're trying to squelch as many rumors as possible. We're trying to educate people as much as possible. I know over the next couple of days, we're going to be doing this a lot. I think one thing too, that we talk about in Native community, just like PTSD or PTI, things like that, Native Americans also have an issue where we actually suffer from having to constantly repeat ourselves of telling our histories, our stories, our knowledge, and so forth. And we were actually talking about it in the hallway before coming out here. It's like, oh, we got to do this again. So this is awesome that this is all being recorded, because guess what? You can just share this with your friends all you want. we don't have to do it. Maybe you get to the place where we don't even have to do this part, which would be great. But it's good that we're able to do this. And we're hoping that as this keeps happening, it's going to keep growing. We want to see people come together. We want to dispel any myths, rumors, and that kind of thing. We want to try to keep that information accurate. And we also know that there's lots of people on the fringe. There's people who really love this. They have the desire to see Zion happen. They have a desire to see people come together. But there's lots of other people who are just, out there. I mean, I'd shared information. Guess what? This knowledge is coming forward. Some people are just like, oh, great. I just want to read the book when it comes out. So it doesn't mean anything to them at all. Okay. So we realize that there's people everywhere in this picture, but we just want to keep it accurate. We want to, keep sharing and growing. All of us do. I want to grow, and I know all you do too. And I just realized there's lots and lots of people outside of this group that want to grow too. And there's many on board with this. There's still going to be lots of opposition in this because it's unknown. It's never happened in people's lifetimes. And finally, we've kind of arrived. So, and our traditional stories are being fulfilled. Our traditional prophecies are being fulfilled. So anyhow, I want to say thank you for being here for all of this. So I'll offer a blessing over the food and our closing. If you want to stand with me, we'll just do that. And then we'll go eat.